We got a couple more coming in. Everybody ready? Good afternoon. We are here today to address something that has impacted every Kentucky family and small business: rising prices due to inflation. While the challenge is temporary, it has now reached a 40-year high directly due to the effect of a once in every 100-year pandemic that has now stretched on for more than 2 years. Our families are tired. And while we are all so collectively excited about our future in electric vehicles, in agritech, in announcing more new jobs than ever before, many are struggling to meet basic needs. Prices are simply too high. What we do not need is partisan reform. What we must have is public relief. We can provide relief responsibly, because while inflation has soared, so has our economy here in Kentucky. We are seeing an economic explosion like never before in my lifetime. That, coupled with the fiscal strength demonstrated by my administration, we propose the best state budget in the last 25 to 30 years. Last year, the Commonwealth shattered every economic development record on the books. That included $11.2 billion in new private sector investment, 18,000 new jobs at the second highest wage in our history. Even better, the streak continues with what I believe is the second best January ever, with 1,400 new jobs, $660 million in new investment. And over last year and into January, the types of jobs we are creating give us a promising future. Jobs of the future, with nearly 600 new jobs in agriculture technology and 6,000 new jobs in the electric vehicle industry. And those numbers are going to significantly increase this year. Kentucky recently placed 7th overall in Site Selection Magazine's Business Climate Rankings, 5th in their Prosperity Cup, and it's positioning us among the national leaders for business climate and new business locations. At the same time, we saw an all-time record-setting budget surplus in fiscal year 2021, and we've entered 2022 with an estimated $1.9 billion more in general fund for this next budget than before. So we have more than ample resources to both provide relief and to make necessary and state-changing investments. Even better, some of our toughest critics are even seeing now that the place we're going, the future, is so bright that S&P Global Ratings revised Kentucky's financial outlook to positive. First time since January 2007, a rating agency has had our rating as positive. And we have the largest rainy day fund in the history of the Commonwealth. The list of positive accomplishments goes on and on when it comes to our fiscal strength and our economic momentum. Our future is hopeful and it's exciting, but I get that our present is hard. Both from a pandemic, the last 2 years, they've been tough. And we're now experiencing the most significant inflation that we have seen in decades. That makes it tougher for our families to get by. And it threatens our small businesses if people can't afford to continuing purchasing things that they need. I've had enough. We've all had enough. And that is why today I'm providing relief on vehicle property taxes. And along with Representative Angie Hatton, we are proposing a temporary 1% drop in Kentucky sales tax. Under our proposal, Kentuckians will see tax relief of approximately $1.2 billion, of which $873 million is directly related to sales tax savings, and $340 million is from the reduction in vehicle property taxes. This will also benefit people in every income bracket and ensure that folks that are struggling to get what they need can continue, while others that are spending and helping to continue to grow our economy can do so. First, to immediately stop an increase in vehicle property taxes caused by soaring used car values, I'm signing an executive order that will result in savings for Kentuckians by stopping an increase in vehicle property taxes, which in Kentucky rose nearly 40% last year. In simple terms, under this order that I'm going to sign right here in just a second, Kentuckians will pay a similar amount that they did last year. If they own the same vehicle and it's in the same condition and they're living in the same county, they will not pay taxes on the inflated value. The property valuation for the average motor vehicle in Kentucky rose from $8,006 to $11,162 in just 1 year. That abrupt change warrants today's action. Now, in asking why this action is being taken today, I will tell you that under Kentucky law, it's my belief that the General Assembly is the one that sets tax policy, is the one that sets how you determine tax policy on motor vehicles and other things. But for the first time last week, the Senate passed a joint resolution that, as opposed to saying, I do not have executive authority, which we've seen a lot of these last couple years, they say I do have the power to do this. So if the legislature believes that I have the power to help Kentuckians, you bet I'm going to do it. And we're going to do it right here today. It's going to be effective immediately, and it's going to be effective for 2 years, giving us time for this inflation to subside and ultimately those values to come down. Those who've already paid their 2022 tax bill don't need to worry. They're going to be getting a refund from their local county clerk's office. So with that, we're going to sign this executive order providing what's $370+ million in relief to Kentuckians. You want to join me in?
Sure.
All right. Next, my administration is working with House Democratic Caucus Whip Representative Angie Hatton, who will be filing legislation to temporarily cut the sales tax from 6% to 5% during the next fiscal year from July 1, 2022, so we have time to prepare for it and implement it, through June 30th, 2023. We'll be able to, with a session next year, determine where we are in Kentucky, where inflation is, and consider further lengthening that at that time. But this historic sales tax cut will help families until the high U.S. inflation rate retreats, which experts predict will fall back to around the 2% range by the end of 2022 and through 2023. The sales tax proposal decrease tax costs for families by more than 16%, as the U.S. inflationary rate is currently at 7.5%. We're talking about savings for every single family buying the things they need. We're talking about things costing less at Kentucky businesses and small businesses that need Kentuckians, even with things being a little more expensive, to continuing coming and buying their wares. This is something that helps not only our people, but our small businesses, and ensures that the benefit that Kentuckians are receiving is directly related to keeping our economy humming. It is a win-win. Now, a word of caution to those in Frankfort that are using evasive terms, vague terms, like comprehensive tax reform. That phrase has always meant one thing: raising the sales tax on everybody so that they could decrease income tax and corporate income tax on the wealthiest Kentuckians and companies that are already having their best years in decades. Those types of cuts, out-of-state corporations, don't benefit our Kentucky economy. People put them in their bank account instead of them being directly related to spending. They will not stimulate our economy, and they will not provide relief to people in every single income bracket, like this 1% reduction, reduction from 6% to 5% of the sales tax will. So why? Why would people in the midst of the highest inflation in decades want to put in a reform that makes things cost more, that makes people struggle even more? It doesn't make sense. And with a new economy coming in Kentucky that's so exciting, with industries of the future that are very different than the industries of the past, the time for any type of tax reform is as we step out of the challenges of our present and we step into our economy of the future, when we can actually have bipartisan conversations about what the future looks like, because the future jobs are here. Our families simply don't need partisan reform. They need relief. And under Representative Hatton's and my proposal, our families get relief as soon as we lower our sales tax. We can save families more than 16% in sales tax on each purchase. So if we are going to alter our tax structure, let's do it to address current inflation, to actually help our people regardless of their wealth. Let's do it in a way that'll make things cost less and help everybody's dollar go further. Right now, we can keep our economy moving, make historic investments in education, healthcare, and jobs of the future, all while providing relief to our families and small businesses. We have the resources to do so, and I urge every lawmaker to do what we're all supposed to: help the people in their community in the most effective and responsible way. I know one lawmaker that certainly agrees. That's Representative Angie Hatton.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to introduce this legislation that I believe will bring immediate help to the families in my district in Eastern Kentucky, but across the state. And in collaborating with the governor over the last couple of weeks, we were discussing what might bring some immediate relief. And while there's lots of talk about long-term, broader tax reform, and some of that is definitely needed, when we do such a thing, we have to keep in mind the people who actually need help. When I ran for this office, I ran to be a voice for the people who don't necessarily have a loud voice in Frankfort, who are drowned out by power and money, and who actually are the people who need help. My predecessor who held this office, Paul Mason, who was the state rep from Letcher County when I was growing up, used to always say, put that jam jar on a lower shelf where the little man can reach it. And hopefully this legislation is one step toward doing that. As the people in my district are racked with higher utility rates, higher unemployment rates, and inflation that they're battling in every single thing that they buy, hopefully this legislation is going to be a noticeable difference for them in their wallets and in their family's budget. And basically what the legislation does is it will lower the sales tax for 1 year, beginning July 1st this year, from 6% to 5%. We can look at it again in a year, see where we're at, see where the state budget's at, see if we are able to afford to continue that, or if it's even needed, if the inflation rate has come back down as predicted, and maybe it won't be needed. But in the meantime, to offset the higher costs of everything that my people are facing, I think this is a good step that could lead us in the right direction. And the exact wrong direction at this point would be passing a tax that raises sales tax. And so this is my version of what we can do now to help my people. The outlook for the state is great. Our economic forecast is phenomenal for the state of Kentucky, but we're not feeling it quite yet in Eastern Kentucky. And hopefully this will get us through this hard time when the downturn in the coal industry in Eastern Kentucky and all across the state in rural areas where folks are seeing higher unemployment rates, that this is something that we can do as a General Assembly. I want to thank the governor for helping me to promote this idea, and also thank my governor for the executive order that he just signed to lower motor vehicle tax rates. You know, we passed a bill in the House already, House Bill 6, that does a whole lot of this, not quite as much, but it was going a long way toward freezing the current rates of motor vehicle tax rates. And that is the most emails and calls that I'm getting from my district are folks worried about this as much as a 40% increase. That's based on global market shifts and supply and demand, supply chain issues that have made used cars be worth more than they used to be. So rather than depreciating this year, they've gone up. It's not something that the legislature did. It's not something that the governor did. This is a global issue, but we can do something about it. So in the House, we passed a bill already. That bill has been sitting in the Senate. I think it's sitting in A&R. A&R met this morning in the Senate, I believe, and they didn't take any action on it. So instead, appears to be some maybe election year shenanigans. Instead, the Senate passed a resolution directing the governor to do it. They could have already passed a bill, a similar bill, and it could, with an emergency clause, could already be in effect and people could be getting their refunds. But that's not what they chose to do. Instead, they chose to blame the situation on the governor and put it in his court. And thank goodness he picked up the ball and ran with it. So I'm grateful for the executive order that was signed today. I'm grateful that our governor cares about things that will help us immediately in the state, especially in my region. And personally, I don't care who gets the credit, and neither do the people in my district. We're just glad that it's happening, and thank goodness it's happening today.
We will now open it up for questions. We have a number of people here today and then a number on the line too. So this may take a minute or two. We'll start with Mark Vanderhoff from WLKY.
Did you ever think that you would be proposing a tax cut, and why or why not?
Well, who would have thought, first of all, 2.5 years ago that we'd be in the midst of a pandemic? Who would have thought we would have faced as many natural disasters as we have? The supply chain issues that we're seeing, this is the first time that a global economy, a truly global economy, has had a pandemic. So again, a whole lot of this is new to us. But what you're seeing today is us being flexible with a short-term relief for what is a short-term problem. But if we're going to provide relief, this is the way to do it. It does two things. One, it helps everybody. And number two, it does it in a way that will stimulate our economy. To have dollars continue to flow through, it's going to help retailers. I mean, restaurants remit, I think, 9% of all the sales tax that comes into the state. So struggling restaurants, this is going to have a lot more people going out and having dinner. Phil Pendleton.
So how does this impact the legislation currently moving through that was unanimously passed by both chambers, House Bill 6 and the Senate resolution on Friday? If those still come across your desk, will you sign those?
Well, so House Bill 6 is pretty similar to the executive order that we signed today. The Senate resolution basically said, Governor, you have the authority to fix the problem. And so today I fixed the problem. If they want to pass legislation that says, great, you fixed the problem, we'll sign that too. But it's been done. People aren't going to pay more than they paid last year, and people are going to get a refund. There'll be small exceptions. If the car is very different, they can work with the PVA. It may be that it's that its condition has changed too, which could result in a change in it. But listen, after 2 years of much of the General Assembly saying I didn't have authority to do something, as the moment they're going to say that I can help Kentuckians, I'm sure as heck going to do it. Conroy.
How soon can those that have paid the property vehicle tax already, I know we're pretty early in the year, but how soon can those expect to get their checks from the county clerks?
I believe we have 120 days in the executive order. It's either 120 or 180. I'll check that for you. Original legislation had 90. Clerks were really worried about hitting that mark, as were we from our side. This gives people that reasonable amount of time where they can expect to get it, and they shouldn't have to do anything, right? Because your address is on that property tax bill. One of the things that I like is when we can provide relief for people not to have to apply for it, right? Not to have to do extra work, and the same people who fall through the cracks each time shouldn't hear. Karen Czar.
For those who are listening or watching, can you explain how this aligns or may differ from the House bill?
So the House bill, I'm not sure, was the full 2 years that we just did. That it's the next 2 calendar years that it'll provide the relief that goes ahead and will solve the issue for our clerks for next year and what to expect. And yes, it'll create some more work for them, which we never want to create more work, especially without funding. But it's something that had to be done. It's something they are ready to get done. Yep.
Yeah. The House bill also required that we start to value used cars at their average trade-in value instead of clean trade-in value, which is something I think that it's been done since 2009. We've been doing clean trade-in value, so that may not even be necessary with this 2 years of reprieve that the governor has granted.
And while you want to look through the language, we wanted to make this as easy for people as possible. Before inflation last year, most people think they paid a certain amount for their cars. This year, it's been too much more. We'll give them the stability of the amount they paid last year. Bodie Brooks.
Have y'all had any consultation with GOP leadership about getting the sales tax cut through, and when we expect to see?
So we've been working first with Representative Hatton. We also haven't been approached with any conversations on any type of tax reform that's out there. This is something that's moved fast because it's needed to. Certainly on the vehicle tax, that resolution only came to the floor at the end of last week. But listen, this is a bill that helps every Kentuckian in every district. It's not R or D, it's not red or blue, and it's good for people in every single income tax bracket. And it's only been recently that we have heard more and more voice, whether it's from certain legislators or for the chamber, about this comprehensive tax reform that in the past has always included an increase in the sales tax to decrease income tax, especially for the highest earners. So moving now is really, really important. This puts it on the table. Legislation is going to be filed today, and we'll be able to have all the discussions in the world, and the legislature is going to be able to have those discussions. All right, Tom Latek, Kentucky Today.
Good afternoon, Governor. Hello, Angie. I've got a question about you, another one about you and the General Assembly. The Senate State and Local Government Committee today approved a proposed constitutional amendment that would limit a governor's pardon power from 30 days before an election to the inauguration day. Do you have any thoughts on that bill?
Well, certainly those legislators are in a very different position than when they were supporting Governor Bevin in the last election. I believe that it's something that we can talk about. I do worry about making major changes based on one governor using the power in a very terrible way. The worst pardons that we have seen, I think, in the history of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, to people who committed heinous crimes based on really faulty information, if not conspiracy theories. I think the solution is to elect reasonable people who would never, ever, ever do something like that. Corinne Boyer, WEKU.
Hi, Governor. Will there be any additional relief coming for small businesses and workers across Kentucky aside from this announcement today?
Well, certainly our budget provides a significant amount of relief, and we can provide this relief and still enact my full budget recommendation. We can do it through a little extra financing because we have one of the lowest debt ratios ever in this budget, and by keeping our rainy day fund where it is, which is the highest that it has ever been. So in that budget, there is hero pay, $400 million going into the pockets of Kentuckians. I've heard some say we want to put money in the pockets of Kentuckians. That's ARPA funds coming from the federal government, just ready to go from people who did heroic acts during this pandemic. There's universal pre-K, which will save an average family $12,000 and get everybody kindergarten ready. There's loan forgiveness for nurses, for social workers, and for teachers. There's help for local communities in getting economic development sites ready that are going to mean they don't have to raise rates on on their people out there to run extra lines and utilities. Our recommended budget's full of billions of dollars of direct investments in people that are going to save them money and result in better jobs. We'll always continue to look at different relief as we move forward. This is a big one, though. This is one, again, every single Kentuckian saves money. At the same time, it's directly related to the stimulation of our economy. Ben Tobin, Courier-Journal.
Hi, Governor. Do you have any successful examples of states lowering their sales taxes to fight inflation that you're pulling from? And if so, can you share them?
Well, let me, first of all, our numbers are all based on our budget. We get the sales tax amounts remitted, so we're confident in these numbers, at least as of today, with projections and what we see. A number of other states are doing a lot of different things. Some of them have proposed and are even moving forward with this. There's been talk, I believe, in Connecticut and a number of others, but we are looking for something tailor-made for Kentucky, because our long-term economic outlook is so much brighter than so many other states right now. And what we're trying to do is to get from point A that we're at, where times are tough, to point B, where we're all really excited about our future. And we believe that doing this, it's reasonable, it's directly tied to spending, and it helps every family, is something that some other states are looking at, but we think it's right for this state. John Cheeves, Herald Leader.
Governor, yes, sir. Do you know where in the budget this would be coming from? And I realize some of this is money we haven't collected yet, so it's kind of hard to say because it would be new money we weren't counting on. But I mean, does this reduce the surplus looking forward? Where does it come from?
Yeah. So what we'll do, and we'll be submitting how to do it to the General Assembly, is a couple things. We were adding to the rainy day fund before. We keep it at its current level, which is the most ever in our history. And I think most of our economists and most state budget directors say it's a good amount for where we are. And then what we do is we finance some of the one-time spending that we were doing with general fund dollars. We're able to do that because we had the least amount of borrowing in our budget compared to old budgets that we've seen really since we started setting a threshold for it. So the answer is we had plenty of room to do it. We have $1.9 billion in extra general fund dollars in this next budget. So there's more than enough money to pay for the relief. I guess what we're showing is that we can both pay for the relief and still make all the investments in my recommended budget, though we will have to make some changes on the financing side and keeping the rainy day fund at its current level. Did I get all that right, John? John Hicks says I got that all right. Emily Bennett, WSAZ. That's high praise in Kentucky.
Yes, Governor. I know we're talking about relief for Eastern Kentuckians, especially with Representative Hatton. We're looking at electric bills is what people in Eastern Kentucky are really complaining about going really high. Is there any, thought into how to lower those bills? Because people are just getting doubled, tripled, and they just can't even pay their bill.
Right. Well, as Attorney General, that was something that we directly fought. And pushing the PSC to recognize affordability as one of the things it considers when you raise your rates. I think we have a PSC that's doing more of that than ever before, but it is still a challenge. Our hope is the pending purchase of Kentucky Power, bringing in an outside partner with probably better financing and willingness to invest. We do hope will result in betterings of those bills. We're going to continue to look for everything we can do. You're 100% right. Eastern Kentuckians, who by the overall numbers have the least, are asked to pay the most for their power, and that's not right. You want to add anything?
If I start talking about utility rates, we'll have to have a whole separate press conference. It is the driving force of everything I've done since I've been elected. The power bills and electric rates in particular in Eastern Kentucky are very often higher than rent for folks in my district. My grandmother got a $900 utility bill. That's not unusual. Tons of people post. You can check out my Facebook posts or lots of social media posts, $600-700 bills for people who are on fixed income. I've met with the incoming owners, Liberty Utilities, and warned them about the situation they're coming in and that we're going to have to find ways to help. Of course, economic development in Eastern Kentucky. For every business that we open, we're able to offset those residential rates with business rates. So we're working hard on it every day, and it is such an enormous issue. I think we have the second highest rates of anywhere in the nation with some of the highest poverty rates. So definitely talk more about this anytime you guys want. And this is the issue that hurts the most.
And we do believe that this will have some direct impact. The utility sector remits 6.5% of the sales tax that we collect. Gabrielle Harmon, WHAS. Okay. Ryan Witry, WEHT, WTVW. It's a lot of letters.
Greetings from Western Kentucky, Governor. So what was the thought process behind dropping the sales tax 1% versus more direct investment into the small businesses?
Well, we tried in the last ARPA round of funds to give direct relief to small businesses. The General Assembly didn't want to go there, and we haven't seen an appetite to use ARPA funds to do that this time around. But what this does is it both helps small businesses because people keep buying, and I think restaurants, especially small town restaurants, this is going to make a really big difference. But it also helps the families directly themselves. It's symbiotic in that way that it's a good thing for everybody. Families will save money over time. That may be that next electric bill that helps them pay. While our restaurants, our different stores out there can actually look at the customer and say, hey, you just saved this amount on this purchase, but every single time you come in, you're going to be saving even more. Did I get everybody in? Yep. Great. Thank you all very much. We'll be working hard on this. Remember, now is not the time for some partisan reform meant to help a few. Now is a time for public relief that helps us all. Thanks.